Hey everyone, and welcome to my walkthrough for the Storm's Crown Extreme. Now, before we get into the fight itself, there's two things that you need to do. Number one is take spread positions. In our case, we had our tanks and healers go onto the cardinals and our DPS players go onto the inter-cardinals. We'll be using these positions for a lot of mechanics in this fight. Second thing that you need to do is also take two groups, one left, one right, of light parties. It's not too important who is in these parties as long as the two healers are away from each other, as they will be targeted by an individual stack marker, which is why you will need these two groups. Now, you'll also notice that our markers are a bit weird. We did this because of a color coding mechanic in the second half of the fight, kind of like in Dragonsong Surprise Ultimate, but we read the mechanic wrong. We thought that red and green were going to be opposite of each other. It was red and blue, at least looking at the VODs that we have for like the few clears that we have done of this fight so far. Could be that it was just blind luck and that the one time that we saw the mechanic it was red and green, and then the other times that we got the mechanic it was red and blue that got the same thing. But I'll explain both ways of handling the mechanic anyways. You can just use normal markers, no need to copy these bad ones. So let's just get right into the fight. First thing that she's going to do is cast a Raid White AoE, so you can put up some pre-shielding before you pull the boss to mitigate this one. This is called Void Arrow 4. This one will also be coming back quite a few times throughout the rest of the fight. Doesn't do that much damage, so nothing to worry about. And then we go into the first semi-random mechanic. Also, every time she jumps to the middle, she do like a very light AoE damage, but that one definitely doesn't hurt that much. So, Savage Barbary. This is a mechanic that has 3 elements to it, and each of these 3 elements also has 2 possibilities of what she's going to do. When she does this mechanic a second time in this phase, then she'll do all of the opposite ones that she didn't do the first time around. So, first thing that you need to see is where she's going to be throwing the sword. That is indicated by these arrows that you can see right here. Second thing is you need to see if it's going to be inside safe or on the side safe. Now in this case her sword is upwards and she's kind of bracing to swing it around. So this means that she's going to be doing a line AoE through the arena where she is facing. So you need to stand to left or right of her. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. You need to move away from where the sword is. I'm kind of pre-positioning in the case that we do have to go to the wall here. Because of course I'm a healer and I don't want to move too much. So it's going to be line. Then she's throwing the sword. Then the second thing is going to be that she's either going to be chasing the sword and then do a cleave through the arena, or she will be doing a donut AoE around her. The way that you can see this is because of how she is going to be grabbing the sword. If it's like this, where she's floating in the air, then she's going to be doing a donut AoE around her. If she is crouching on the floor, then she'll be jumping towards the sword and do a cleave. And then the third thing is that we'll either get healer stacks, which is what we get right here, or we will be getting individual AoEs. But in this case, it was the healer stacks. So that resolves the first one, and then we're going to be getting it a second time. She jumped middle, so that meant that she did a tiny AoE around herself. This time around, her sword is to the side, and she's standing upright. That means she's going to be doing a donut AoE, and then she will be chasing the sword after she throws it. So you'll see her crouch in just a second. And that means that we also get individual AoEs. So as you can see, she's crouching on the floor. Means that she'll be dashing towards the sword. Does the cleave, and then about a second later, the individual AoEs go out. And then she finishes the mechanic with a Void Arrow 4, so make sure everybody is healed, and put up some mitigation. After this, we get Void Arrow 3. This one is a tank buster that puts a debuff on the main tank, so you do need to tank swap this one. And this one will also come back later into the fight. Then she'll jump to the middle. Again, tiny AoE. And then we have Teasing Tangles. Put up some mitigation for this, as people are going to be dragged away from each other. And then you can't really heal the rest of the group because you're so far away from each other. So in your pairs that you are tethered to in these little like dots of hair, triangles, whatever you want to call them, one person is going to get a very big circle AoE and another person is either going to get nothing or enumeration, which is these like 2 dots that you can see on me. The way how we did this is we have our circle players go to the 1 and the 3 markers, and we have the stack players go to the 2 and the 4 markers. So because I have a stack here, I'm going towards the 2 marker, and then the person over here that does not have a stack is coming towards me to stack with me. What's important is that you stay inside of the green circle. You'll see this mechanic come back a couple of times throughout the fight, and you just need to make sure that you do not leave the green circle or yellow circle, whatever you want to call it, that you are tethered towards, also when you're tethered towards a player, because later in the fight you're going to be tethered with a player, and then you'll also see a little green circle around you. Also dodge these cleaves over here, and once this mechanic resolves, you also need to make sure that everybody is spread out, as there is going to be a second cleave as well that will target all of your players, and that gives a physical vulnerability up, so you do need to make sure that you're away from each other. Another Void Arrow 4, so heal up, mitigate, and then we go into the second phase. So for the phase transition, she'll first transform her body, which at the end of the transformation will also do a little bit of raid-wide damage, but it takes a very long time, so it's not at the end of the cast bar right here, it's actually when she finishes the transformation around now. So this is where you'll want to put up your mitigation. Then you still have a couple of seconds before she actually jumps off and does a second raid-wide attack. So she jumps away here, you can put up some mitigation, and then she will pounce onto the floor. Then we'll be getting the first mechanic after this, for which we want to be using our markers. So remember the position that you were in, go stand in that. First you'll be targeting all tanks and healers with a dash and then a follow-up line AoE, which you can sidestep after she hits you. And we get a Tank Buster. Now this Tank Buster is a shared one, so either you can just stack together or you can use your invuln on this. My group decided to try and use invulns as much as possible, because it was just easier to do it that way, and it's also random if it's going to be on the main tank or the off tank. So if it goes onto, for example, our Paladin twice in this case, he can't use Hallowed twice, so you will need to stack one of them, so do keep that in mind when you do position yourselves for all of this. So we have our Tank Buster go out right here. After this happens, everybody should move towards the middle, as we'll all be getting this weird looking like marker, I guess you could call it. This is going to be spawning some very big AoEs under our feet when this resolves. So that's why we all stack into the middle, we drop our AoEs there, and then we move towards our marker to dodge all of these AoEs going out. So here we're going to be dropping our puddles, everybody moves out because we need to stack away from each other. And then the tanks and healers will be targeted with the share markers, so the DPS just rotate clockwise and go stack with your tanks and healers. After this is done, all of the DPS players will be tethered, so you get the dash and then you get the follow-up AoE, so sidestep that one. And then we get punches. She's going to be smacking the floor a bunch of times, so put up some mitigation. The final hit of this attack also does bonus damage. After this resolves, you want to make sure that everybody is stacked together, as that will resolve the next mechanic quite easily. So everybody is going to be spawning circle AoEs underneath them, and she's also going to be dashing towards your healers and tanks. But if you all move together like this to dodge the circle AoEs, it will also resolve all of the dashes as well. So you don't really have to think about that at all, you only have to think about dodging all the circle AoEs. After this resolves, both tanks will get a proximity marker and one of the two healers will get an AoE marker, a shared one. So what we do is we have our healers and the rest of the group stay where we finished our dodge, and our two tanks will go away left and right. Together with this is also a knockback, but you can use Surecast or Arm's Length for this if you want to do so. And that then resolves that mechanic. Then she'll jump back middle, and then she will go onto all of your DPS players one final time. Once that's done, people get tethered again. Now this time around it's a little bit different. So in this case there are no big circles and stacks anymore, it's only stacks that you have to worry about. Now the person that you are tethered with will always get the same mechanic as you. So what you need to do is just go left and right within your partners, and that's basically going to resolve this mechanic. Because either both you and your partner will have nothing, or both you and your partner will have the stacks. And that's pretty much that. Outside of that, you just want to be dodging all of these AoEs. Ones on the floor, the tornadoes as well. And then as you can see, me and my partner got these stacks, so that means I'm going to be stacking together with the person on my left, and my partner is going to be stacking together with the person on the right. And then to finish off the phase, she is going to be doing another set of punches. This set of punches hurts a little bit more, because it's like after everybody just took some individual AoEs as well. So you do want to make sure that if you have some mitigation to spare, that you use it on that one. Then she's transforming back into her normal form, so at the end that is also going to be doing some raid-wide AoE. So make sure you have some mitigation up for that. And then we get our first set of markers. Now we just color coded these, so if you have blue, you go to the blue marker, red's red marker, etc. For the first one, doesn't have too many mechanics, just make sure that you're with your partner. Second time that we see this, it's a little bit more intricate. So after you get tethered with your partner, again, make sure that you stay within the green circle. And then you want to spread left and right. You don't necessarily need to go left and right of this AoE, but it does make pre-positioning a bit easier for the follow-up mechanic. You can also stand next to each other and then spread out after this AoE goes off. The reason why you want to be spread out after this is because everybody will get those individual line AoEs again as well. So that's why you want to make sure that you are spread away. Then Savage Barbary again, so her sword is to the side, meaning that inside is going to be safe. She is throwing it towards D, so we want to be away from the D marker as well. Then we want to see if we need to chase the boss or if it's going to be a second donut AoE. In this case, she is going to be crouching. That means that we need to go to the wall. And then we get our two healer shares, so left and right, stack with your healers. Right after this, we get another raid-wide AoE, so heal up for that. And after the raid-wide AoE, we get our second tank swap. So tanks, make sure you use some mitigation, and then also tank swap after the buster. And then we are preparing to go mid again for our second set of PlayStation markers. Now again, as I mentioned before, we actually looked at the mechanic the wrong way, I guess you could say, which is why our markers are a bit wrong, but I'll explain both ways of how you can do this. So in this case, two groups are going to be getting stacks, two groups will get nothing. Now what we initially planned to do, or tried to do at least, is have both of these stacks on opposite sides. That way you just go left and right, doesn't matter if you have a stack or not, and then you'll be fixed like that. Like for example, the way we wanted to do it would have me stacking together with the person on my left here, and it would have my black mage stacked together with my paladin over here. And then we just spread out like that, kind of like how we have our spread positions for the first time that this mechanic happens. Right here. We basically would be standing something like this. We'd just be a little bit closer together towards the middle of the arena so that everybody can have like a stack partner. But if it does end up being completely random, which is something that we didn't necessarily know about, you can also do it like this, where you just go to the people that are right next to you. So in this case, my black mage goes to the paladin and I go towards the bard. Then we kind of form like a line. As long as you have a stack partner and as long as you're not overlapping the AoEs, it's going to be totally fine. So Savage Barbary a second time. This time around it's going to be the line because her sword is up. And she is also going to be doing a donut AoE and then the individual AoEs as well. Now when she does the donut AoE over here, make sure that you wait long enough before moving out. So don't follow my example, because the AoE does take a little while to go out and you still have plenty of time to move out for your spread AoEs afterwards as well. So that's something to keep in mind. After this, another raid-wide AoE, and then we go into another phase change. So jump to the middle, tiny AoE, but as you can see, it really doesn't hurt that much. And then she is going to be transforming into her alternate form again. And then again, she will do a little raid-wide AoE at the end of the transformation. After transforming just like before, she will be dashing towards your tanks and healers. With a little line that you need to sidestep at the end. Punches again, so make sure you stack up, heal up, mitigate, all of that good stuff. And after that you'll want to all stack together so that you can move together again for these circle AoEs. Essentially every time that she punches the floor, just stack up and be prepared to do this. It doesn't happen every time, but it's something that you can just make it easy for your healers to heal you as well. These explosions on the floor, there's 4 of them. I'll just rewind real quick. So this is the end of the punches. And then you get 1 explosion, 2, 3, and then 4. After the 4th one, everybody move mid because we have those markers again. So after you move mid, locate where your marker on the edge of the arena is, and then spread out to those positions. As you do this, your DPS players are also getting the dashes. So this is something to keep in mind as it's quite dangerous. And now we're going to be dodging a lot of AoEs. So dodge those AoEs, we get knockback with spread markers, so stand in the middle, get knocked back. You can also use arm's length if you want to do that again. Then your tanks and healers get another set of dashes. Then we get some tornadoes, and now it's just essentially a lot of AoE dodging that needs to be happening. At the end of this, double tank buster, so again, share it or invuln. And then we're also going to be getting another set of tank proximity markers and a healer share, which will happen at the end of this one, but we ended up killing it here so you won't see it, but I do have a second POV where you'll see the rest of the fight. So this is where we ended up killing it. Rewind a little bit to the beginning of the AoEs. So after these, our two tanks get their proximity markers. One of the healers will get a stack marker. In our case, in this POV, both of the healers are dead, so it went on a DPS. Normally this is on a healer. You can also wait until these AoEs on the floor resolve before you stack together. So as you can see, you have a little bit of time to still converge on the stack marker. After this, you'll jump middle again and start punching the floor. So you should stack up, heal up, mitigate, all of that good stuff. Final hit does bonus damage, and then after this one, she is going to be transforming into her normal form again for one final round of mechanics before she casts her enrage. So again, at the end of the transformation, a little bit of rate-wide damage. Then this is normally where you would get another set of PlayStation buttons, but because our paladin was the only person alive, you don't actually see the PlayStation markers because you actually need a partner for that to be alive. But this is essentially the same as the first time that we saw it. You're tethered together with your partner, and then you just go left and right of these AoEs. After these AoEs resolve, you also get the individual cleaves, so you need to make sure that you're staying spread. We get another Savage Barbary, this time only one of them. Sword is to the side, so be inside of the boss's hitbox, away from where she's throwing the sword. Look if she's chasing or staying. She is crouching, so that means go to the wall, and then we have individual player AoEs after this. So that all resolves. One final raid-wide AoE, which is that Void Arrow 4, and after this one she will be jumping towards the middle, do a tiny bit of raid-wide damage again as always, and then she will start casting Maelstrom, which is her enrage. And that is going to do it for my walkthrough for this fight. If you have any more questions about any of the mechanics, then feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll definitely get back to you. But with that, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my patrons for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.